Hello, everybody. We appreciate you spending some time with us today to talk about some ways to start taking advantage of artificial intelligence platforms and language models in Azure. My name is Joe Kozlowitz. I'm the Director of Marketing here at Lunavi. I'm just going to run through some brief housekeeping before handing things off to our presenters. Firstly, this session is being recorded. You will be emailed the recording later today. So if we go long or if you need to drop for some reason, you will be able to review the content later. If you don't receive that email, please contact us and we'll make sure that you get a link. You can ask questions at any time. Please use the chat for that. Try and keep them relevant to the discussion at hand, of course. We'll also have some time reserved at the end of the presentation for Q&A. So we expect this overall session to run about 1 hour, and we'll have some time at the end for all your questions. I will also be posting a couple of polls in the chat area throughout the session, so keep an eye out and please participate in those. Before I introduce our speakers, I also want to introduce Lunavi for those of you who may not be familiar. We're an IT consulting firm and managed services provider that helps organizations like yours create the next generation of technology solutions while empowering your teams to deliver those solutions in a better way. We offer a broad range of services from cloud enablement and infrastructure to leading application development and data analytics services. Lunavi is one of just a handful of Microsoft Azure expert MSPs worldwide, proving our capabilities across their suite of products and services. Our consulting approach is rooted in agile methodologies. This delivery guidance results in knowledge sharing, so your teams can be self-sufficient, while we also provide a high level of visibility and reporting to build shared accountability and ultimately transform not only your technology, but the way you work. Our primary presenter today is Sean Mills, President and a founding member of Lunavi. Under his leadership, Lunavi has grown from its roots as a data center service provider to offering a broad solution set of innovative services around cloud computing, modern applications, and managed services, with an extensive client list featuring Fortune 500 organizations across all verticals. Prior to his 16 years with Lunavi, Sean accumulated a decade of C-suite experience in technology and marketing positions. We're also joined by our Senior Vice President of Digital Transformation, Mike Douglas. Most of our presentation will be focused on business cases, but Mike will be here to chime in on technical questions and clarification. Throughout his career, he has worked with organizations to improve their application security and compliance controls and increase speed of delivery and quality through DevOps processes. Mike is a Microsoft MVP in developer technologies with a focus in Azure DevOps and has deep experience across DevOps, automated testing, and information security. That's it for my intros. Please enjoy the presentation, and I will be on in the background to help with your questions or any technical difficulties.
Well, fantastic. Thanks, Joe. Thanks for the introductions. Hello, everybody. Welcome to our webinar today. I'm joined here with Mike. I'm excited to have you participate with me, and feel free to chime in as you see anything that you'd like to add as we talk through this. As Joe alluded to, we are going to mainly focus on business use cases. We're going to highlight some of the technologies that enable these use cases, and as we mentioned, Mike can certainly dive in to add color as necessary. So, as we put together this presentation on innovating on Azure OpenAI and CoPilot, Microsoft CoPilot, the statement, "Your future depends on it," was really resonated with me as we start to think about how is AI, and in this case and in this conversation, really GenAI, and how OpenAI is really transforming the way we do business. One of the market research firms suggested that GenAI and the tools around OpenAI are going to contribute about $10 trillion to the global GDP. So you might be asking, well, how big is the global GDP? Well, that's about $100 trillion. So this is going to add about 10% to the global GDP. And so when you think about it, many organizations are kind of taking one of three approaches to GenAI right now. And so as we start to, as Joe just posted one of the polls, the three kind of approaches are, hey, we're all in on Gen AI. We see the benefit of this. We're going for this. And we think this is going to have a massive transformation for our organization. Or they're taking a more hesitant wait and see attitude. And so it's, let's see how this progresses. Let's see how this transforms over the next few years. And then maybe we'll jump in. And then quite frankly, we've heard several organizations that we've talked to over the last year or last several months to a year. Some of them are taking we're not convinced, and we're putting our head in the sand and we're doing nothing. And so if you think about it, if the first category all in is about 10%, 20% of the world, at least on this call, 75% of you, because you're on the call, I assume, are very much interested in this. $10 trillion and 1/10 of the total GDP is a massive impact. And so this technology and the ways that this can be implemented inside of organizations will change the way your organization operates moving forward. And so I thought this would be a great statistic to share with everyone. You know, what does Gartner say about Gen AI, and I think this was about 2,500 C-suite executives, both business and IT, of what are they thinking about when it comes to Gen AI. 38% of them are really focused on the customer experience, helping to retain customers, trying to understand, you know, how can we leverage Gen AI to really improve this customer experience. 26% are looking at revenue growth. We're going to talk about several of these different use cases, how some of them can drive net new revenue, how this can change our customer experience, how we can retain more customers. And then many of them are thinking about it from a cost optimization perspective. How do I optimize the cost of delivering my service, getting my product to market, my maintenance costs, et cetera? Cost optimization will be a key component as organizations are thinking about how they could leverage Gen AI, and we're really excited to talk about some of those as well. Other scenarios are business continuity, and then 12% of these folks are, it's not applicable, or we're not really thinking about it right now. So some interesting facts as you start to think about how does this generative AI fit into our business processes. So as you're participating in this webinar with me, what I'd really like to do is ask you to think about, how can I turn this into a concrete action plan for innovating inside of our organization? We're going to go through a ton of examples. We're going to end later this in 30 minutes or so with a Q&A session. I would love for you all to start coming up as we're giving examples with ways that you think that this could be implemented in your organization. And we're definitely open to hey, how about this? How could you see this? How might that happen? And any other questions you might have really at the end. What are some of the risks associated with this? How can I get more buy-in from my organization? So as you're going through this, jot down some questions, jot it into the chat. Joe will keep tallies on that. And we'll love to continue to answer some of your questions here at the end. So the agenda, we're going to start with how do we get started in AI and Gen AI? What is Azure OpenAI and what is Microsoft CoPilot? How could these be used in our organization? We're going to outline the two primary Gen AI paths that we see right now with organizations and how they can use them. We're going to illustrate a few of the opportunities to start building the future now. So I think what you'll find is these use cases should be very thought-provoking of ways that you could start building these right now inside of your organization. But one of the things that we have found here with item number 5 is that organizations sometimes are challenged with how to come up with these use cases. What are some of the ways that we can use this? So hopefully these examples will help you. But in the event that you need to go back out to the business or want to start brainstorming, we want to give you the tools for a discovery process of really how you could get started inside of your organization very quickly. And lastly, focusing on ROI. There are so many use cases that Gen AI has inside of all of your organizations. The easiest place to start is with the highest ROI items, and we'll dive into that. And as we mentioned, we'll end with the Q&A. So one of my favorite quotes whenever we're thinking about how can we get started on anything new inside of the organization, and my favorite quote is, you don't have to be great to start, but you have to start to be great. So the challenge that we see in many organizations that are taking either a wait and see or head in sand, or even those that want to be all in, is that the organization may or may not be ready for it. And so unless you get started, you won't know, and you won't be able to start taking advantage of this $10 trillion or 10% net new GDP growth opportunities that we will see in all of our industries. So getting started, we kind of have outlined here 5 different ways that you can get started. One of the things that needs to be, the very first phase of getting started with GenAI is really to develop your corporate GenAI policy. So we worked with our attorneys, we worked with our HR, and we really recommend that based on your organization, your level of comfort with GenAI, doing the research, we're able to see that legal is getting comfortable with it, security is getting comfortable and has gotten comfortable with GenAI, but you really need to develop the policy. And so one of the things that we really think about here with our usage inside of Lunavi and GenAI, and as we're working with our clients, is really focusing on recognizing that GenAI is a tool. It's a tool that can be used. It can be used to help your organization be more efficient, to communicate better with your customers, but that you have to do it responsibly. You have to know that data can be sensitive. So you need to make sure that you've set up the security and controls and let your team members understand that there is a policy. We need to follow the policy, and we need to make sure that everybody in the organization adheres to it. The second key step is educating the organization. And with all of you here on this call with us today, this is a great first step. What is it that GenAI can do for us? How can I use it? How can I share more of this information throughout the whole organization on ways to use GenAI? We at Lunavi work with our clients, and if we worked internally to do workshops to ensure that the sales organization knows how to use it, the finance and accounting organization knows how to use it, how operations can leverage this. So educate the organization on what GenAI is and how to use it. Fear is a real hurdle oftentimes when anything new is launched into an organization. Not understanding how to use it, not understanding the ramifications. I don't want to leak any data out. So making sure everybody understands how you can use GenAI and by educating the organization is really critical. And then the third step is, as you start to think about how to launch GenAI initiatives and leveraging Azure OpenAI and some of these copilots from Microsoft, it's really great to assemble a cross-functional team, a leadership team that can help you navigate your way through this. So it needs to be inclusive across the organization of skills and capabilities in different departments that can help identify these as the fourth step, identify these needs and opportunities. You can bring this team together so that they understand the tech, that they understand the implications from customer support, they understand the implications from order management, manufacturing. So bringing these cross-functional teams together to really get a great sense of how to identify these needs and opportunities and what are the highest ROI opportunities to bring to the table to the company. And, we'll talk about this a little bit more in a few minutes, but these opportunities with GenAI bring such high ROI. One of our clients has shared with us that they could save about $1 million a year on some relatively inexpensive ways to launch GenAI initiatives. And that's just one way that they're doing it. So what we really recommend is testing and experimenting inside your organization. What are ways that these could be used? And then lastly, get out of the way. You've built a team of cross-functional experts inside your organization. Let them experiment. Let them try initiatives that could leverage this and see how they perform, measure the performance, and then see if they should go to production or be expanded throughout the rest of the organization. So I wanted to give you a quick overview of Azure OpenAI and Microsoft copilots and some of the ways that Microsoft is bringing some of these products to market. So what is Microsoft and Azure OpenAI? Really, Azure OpenAI is primarily a managed service platform that allows organizations to access all of these tools, these language models, these other AI technologies via API, so that you can embed them in your business process, so that you could embed it into your applications, and you can really expand and innovate on the way you go to market. Some of these examples, and Mike, feel free as we go through these to add any color here, but some of the examples that we see are of models that have already been pre-trained and pre-created are sentiment analysis of text. So we're all on Zoom. We get transcripts of every Zoom and Teams, and we get transcripts of all of these meetings that we participate in. These tools can be used to summarize that text, help drive some of the sentiment of that meeting. Was everybody engaged? Were they happy, sad, disappointed? You know, where does the sentiment of that meeting land? And then you can use these tools as well to create text using custom prompts. Probably the way most of us have used OpenAI or ChatGPT or some of these copilots is really in the creation of text using prompts. So asking AI questions. You can extract information from these texts. Now you have the ability to detect objects in pictures and images and have that share with you or describe what it sees in there. And we'll walk through some of these use cases. We're even able to predict future outcomes from historical data. So loading data, analyzing data inside of Azure OpenAI, and then allowing it to predict and share what are some of the things I can't even see in this data. Extract custom entities or classify text into custom categories. Mike, anything else you'd like to hit on any of these?
Well, I think one thing in general too, there's often a lot of confusion between Azure OpenAI and just OpenAI and ChatGPT, and Sean mentioned about the security and doing things responsibly. One of the things that's really important is Azure OpenAI is a private copy of OpenAI data, and that Microsoft is basically made it so that they will not use any of your data to be used inside of their service or use it for the modeling. Whereas you do need to be careful using OpenAI. So I mean, there's some definitely some similarities, but differences between those.
Yeah, no, that's a great point, Mike. And as you think about leveraging Azure and Azure OpenAI, the key here, as Mike alluded to, you can confidently and securely upload your corporate data into Azure and into Azure OpenAI and feel confident that it's not going to be shared with anybody else or with Microsoft. So as you're uploading any of your data, any of your knowledge bases, any of your transcripts, any of your proprietary images, you can feel confident that that is not going to be shared out with the rest of the world unless you set it to be part of the answers that you would like for your clients to be able to get information from. So as we're going through this, really, we want to point out some of these different ways that folks can leverage some of the technologies in here, really, so it starts to inform different ways that you could use Azure OpenAI and Microsoft CoPilot. So you can do things like extracting information from invoices. So we were talking to a medical company in Florida late last week, and they still get a ton of faxes from doctors' offices. So being able to drop these faxes into Azure OpenAI and have it help with the business processes that they are using and leveraging is absolutely a way that they could use it. Extracting or reading text out of PDFs or documents is another way in general in photos. So I think as you've all seen I think you've seen things like Google Translate where you're uploading pictures and then it can translate it into different languages. And in fact, Azure OpenAI can detect and translate more than 90 languages across the globe. So as you're thinking about different use cases, if you're a global company and much of your material is in English or is in Spanish or is in only one or two languages, you now have the ability to translate leveraging OpenAI into more than 90 different languages as you're thinking about opening a new market or opening a new set of customers that may or may not speak the language that your information is currently written in. Other things like extracting information from receipts. All of these are pre-trained models and plugins that you can leverage right out of the box from Azure and Azure OpenAI. Extracting custom information from other documents, detecting positively, we talked about positive, negative, and neutral sentiment. So what can you do with that? So if someone is very negative on one of your conversations or in bringing through a video analysis, you could flag that negative sentiment and do an action based on that with that customer interaction. So as we're going through this, you can look at more relevant keywords and phrases. And with those keywords and phrases, you can create actions that come after a keyword or a phrase, all through the usage of this GenAI model. And we'll walk through some of those examples here shortly. Mike, anything else you wanted to add on top of this?
Well, I mean, just really, I mean, these are just great ways to get started, right? Like, you just look for a use case that is closely aligned to what you're looking for, and then you could use that to get you started and get you on your journey, right? So you're not starting from like a blank sheet of paper. So it's just great they have all these different ways to get started.
Yeah, and the nice thing is, as you bring your technical teams in here, they can start developing additional use cases. They can develop additional models. They can develop additional plugins, and we'll talk about what some of those might look like in real life here shortly. So next, we wanted to talk about Copilot. So Microsoft has launched Microsoft Copilot. You've probably heard of the M365 Copilot. You've probably heard of the Microsoft Copilot, which is really embedded in Bing and Bing Enterprise, again, so that anytime you're working with Microsoft in their Copilots or on Azure OpenAI, when you're uploading data, there's a little secure button that you know that when you're uploading the data, it is your data and it's staying there. But the pretty cool thing about these virtual chat assistants is that you can very quickly deploy a chat assistant that can help your organization streamline your operations, drive new revenue, drive new customer experiences or engagements very, very quickly. So the ability to iterate and rapidly develop on top of Microsoft Copilots, they have a Microsoft Copilot Studio where you can get in there. It's built on top of Power Apps, and you can start to not only leverage the generative AI and the conversational natural language capabilities to have a chat. You can also implement voice to text or speech to text or text to speech, so that it not only can it be a chat function, but it could also be a voice function. All of these same things could be turned into voice functions. So very cool new ways to interact with an organization in natural language so that you can get the most value out of these with your customers. So you can create different workflows, for instance, in sales. So you have a sales focused chat and the customer says, hey, I would like to order, or the example on the right here is that I found an item I'd like to get better. You can, through this chat, you can allow it to look up, authenticate itself, look up the order, and then process the order as necessary. In marketing, a lot of these virtual chat assistants can be used to help the marketing team create additional content or reimagine the way the customer communications work, and we'll talk more about that, to accounting workflows or order processing workflows, so that people can communicate in the ways that are the most efficient for them to communicate. So when a process takes longer to click through or enter information via a website, if it's faster to chat it or communicate it, these aren't the virtual chat assistants you might be used to, or where it asks one question at a time, looks to get an answer, then ask the next question, looks to get an answer. We'll talk about some of the much, much more advanced ways that the virtual chat assistants can work. So as we talked about, there's really two GenAI paths that we see working with our clients. There is working internally with your teams to enhance your team's productivity. So thinking about a sales GenAI initiative where you have a Copilot that's built specifically to be a sales manager, or a Copilot that's specifically built to be introduce new products to market for your sales team. So really in internally focused Gen AI initiatives, and then externally focused and infusing AI into your application that can be internal applications or external applications. And so we'll look at a few of those examples here in just a minute as well. So I put together, this is really small, so hopefully you can see this, but at the highest level, this is a custom copilot that we put together that is real quick. It's meant to be an automobile dealer sales manager. So imagine a large automobile dealership that has 20 salespeople on the floor trying to help close deals, trying to help their sales team get the stuff they need to get build great relationships with their customers and sell various cars. So in this example of this copilot, really an internally focused automobile dealer sales manager copilot, this virtual chat was built so that the salesperson, in this case is the you, can ask questions of this auto sales manager. And basically ask the question, hey, I've been working with a person for 3 days to get him to buy this 2022 Tesla Model S. What strategies would you suggest to close this deal? And interestingly, it suggests 5 different ways to help get this deal closed for this salesperson. So from a trading perspective, if this is a complex sale, or if this was a newer salesperson and they really want to work through this, it suggested 5 different ways and will allow this salesperson to go have different conversations with that salesperson. The interesting thing about this, this custom copilot is the ability to role play. So again, maybe this is complicated, maybe it's not. How the salesperson asked this virtual sales manager, can you role play this with me? Creating a sense of urgency. And he said, sure, here, what we can role play this. You be the customer and I'll be the salesperson. It started to highlight exceptionally high demand to help create the sense of urgency, to help the customer realize that this is a great car. We've seen a significant uptick in inquiries, and the supply chain, there's been supply chain issues for new cars. So a lot of people are looking at used cars. So it's bringing relevant information to this conversation that a sales organization, and specifically an auto sales organization, could leverage. This was put together with no feedback from an actual automobile dealer. This is the out-of-the-box, very quick iteration of how could we use this? Is this valuable? That you can then train to be more specific on your sales plays or your data that you need or your inventory for this salesperson. The salesperson could ask a question like, hey, the customer was interested in the Tesla Model S, but it was too expensive. Could you recommend out of our inventory 3 more? And it would be able to recommend those 3 additional cars directly for this salesperson. And then it could help it with closing the deal. So this said, hey, the customer is asking for $1,000 off. You know how car dealerships work. You have to go back and forth. This auto sales manager was able to help this person understand. And if it was trained and they knew out of the inventory that the current price we're offering, there is no room to negotiate, it could say, hey, look, here's the scenario you could use to typically price out that you could use to help close this deal, understanding that there is no room to negotiate on price. So pretty cool example of how a custom copilot could be used. I've also created another custom copilot really focused on internal use cases, right? So imagine Latte Larry, technical support guy. So this is a latte manufacturing company. We created this custom copilot so that it could be the technical support manager. The you in this case is a field technical support person that is working to repair this latte machine out in the field, and they need additional help. So I was able to upload a technical support manual from this customer. And again, rapidly iterating, we were able to see what would it see or know or do based on these technical support manual. So this is asked the question, I seem to be having an issue with my check valve. So the technical support in the field understood that it was a check valve issue. And Latte Larry support came back and is walking them through this process. Which type of brew group does your machine have? And the field salesperson was able to take a picture of the brew group, of the check valve, and submit it to this CoPilot. Latte Larry comes back and says, oh, I see that you have type A brew group. And based on this technical support manual, was able to bring up solely the type A brew group troubleshooting initiatives so that that person could get through this initiative faster, get the customer happy and their machine repaired in a faster way so that they don't have to go sit on hold or wait for a technical support person to help with this. Right here, he was able to leverage the knowledge that this organization had through its technical support manuals and get it to the support representative and give them the steps necessary to work their way through this very quickly. So there's so many use cases, and because I want to get through this, I won't go through all of these, but imagine in sales, account hyper-targeting. So everybody, most organizations have a CRM. The ability to tie your CRM data into the GenAI will allow your sales organization to be able to hyper-target the conversation around the persona. So I'm talking to a CTO about new app development initiative that we want to do in this industry with this revenue. It's able to amass all of the information that you have on your various target accounts and provide specific targeted information. In marketing, you could create a personalized message for every single person in your database, leveraging the data you have that's known publicly, the data you have in your CRM, to get the most personalized information you can. Operations, improving customer support, optimizing internal meeting notes, building presentations so that you could present that meeting that you just had back to other parts of the organization. There's tons of use cases, and I look forward to hearing what types of questions, what use cases you were thinking about, how could this be possible, etc. The good news is you can start right now, and many of these things can be built today with the technology that we have, and we're going to walk through a couple of use cases. With one of our customers, we took the opportunity to build a quick proof of value around a virtual banking advisor. This virtual banking advisor, the goal was to determine, can we embed this GenAI application into mobile, online banking? Could it be an IVR replacement? Could it be on their online banking? Could it be attached to the web? How could the customer service group leverage the knowledge-based content? So we quickly built an application, and this is a real-life example of how a banking customer could utilize this. And if you can imagine, this was just a chat-based session sitting on top of a core banking platform, leveraging Azure OpenAI. And then we built some plugins that leverage the APIs that this organization already had to go perform these activities. So specifically, we leveraged plugins that allowed for transfers, transactional information, balance information, and account information. And this is one example of a questioning activity that we used with this chat session. So you can imagine just adding voice to text and then text to voice for this to be an IVR replacement. But basically, we asked it a question just super random out of the blue that said, if I go out to eat less, would I save more money? So just based on this conversation, it takes the intent of that question and performs activities based on the plugins that we've developed. So for instance, it went in and looked at the transaction and it said, well, based on the categories we see from food and beverage, we can see in the savings and checking account, you had 4 transactions. That is the cost. And so to determine if you'd save more money, you need to compare the total amount of spent on food and beverage to the amount you would save by reducing it. So very quickly, you can understand, here's how much I spent on eating out over the last month or in these transaction period. By far, one of the coolest things as you start to think about how you interact with chat systems today versus how you will interact with them in the future. This question, what is my balance in my checking account? Have I paid my energy bill this month? And can you transfer, notice transfer is spelled incorrectly, $100 from my checking to my savings account? It takes all of this intelligence and the intent behind this question, utilizes the plugins that were built on top of the core banking platform and the databases that the bank has. And it comes back to you and says, the balance in your checking account, this is the number. We didn't ask for the number. It just knows, oh, well, I want to make sure you have the correct one. It's $51,000. The energy bill this month has not been paid. We have transferred $100 from your checking to savings, and here is your new balance in each of those two accounts. Mike, would you like to add any color to this?
Yeah, I think probably the most exciting thing was we really designed this for those two scenarios. One, about is the energy bill paid, and two, to transfer the money. And what Sean has shown is just by enabling it for those scenarios, it enabled a lot of other scenarios that we didn't explicitly design it to do. It's just really great when you take the power of your data, your APIs, enable those as plugins with the power of natural language processing and these tools. It really allows us to do much, much more. And I think that's been probably the biggest change, and really the biggest development change I've seen in 20 plus years of development. So real exciting.
Well, as you can see here in this banking advisor, you can imagine in banks, there's tons of APIs already created. Pay my bill, do a credit check, process this mortgage payment. Can I apply for a new consumer loan? All of these can be enabled through the chat capabilities and voice to text capabilities for an organization to leverage. So you can imagine this scenario perhaps in your organization, or different ways that you could leverage that. So in this case, it can be a customer support enhancement. It could also be a revenue generating by actually performing the consumer loan process so that the bank can make additional money off of an additional credit card account. Here's another example where we're leveraging a whole bunch of different technologies. So imagine a baking manufacturing line. So we set up this custom CoPilot around a manufacturing line manager. And this manufacturing line manager understands the technology that's being used on this manufacturing line. In this case, it was an Impreza baking manufacturing line. That is the technology that's running this specific baking manufacturing line. We use computer vision as well as interactions with the human shift lead to work through this scenario. So the human shift lead, or the computer vision in this case, could state, I see that the distance between these three in the top scenario, in the top yellow box of the picture, I see that these three pizzas are now an inch too close and could cause issues down the line if we don't adjust this. This bakery shift lead was able to take this information either from a computer vision or from this human that said this to the system, and was able to automatically, through its plugins, slow down the conveyor, recalibrate the pizza placement to get the baking manufacturing line back into compliance so that there aren't issues later. It was then able to complete the feedback loop, informing the human operator that we've made these changes. You can see these changes, and the system is now operating normally, and also able to update the maintenance schedule because it performed this automated maintenance on the manufacturing line. It's able to feed back the information to the maintenance schedule so that both the humans and the schedules will know how this manufacturing line can continue to operate in an efficient manner. Another example, we're running short on time, a furniture company app. You might have seen these pictures from IKEA. can do image recognition. I'm not sure about you, but I don't like looking at these images and messing up the way these IKEA things get built. We can use this image recognition and the generative AI to not only create a video tutorial, but an audible instruction. So in here, in this example, it took this image and said, hey, here's the step-by-step way that you could approach as a customer, how to put this together without having to necessarily look at this image. And again, this can be translated into up to 90 different languages from just this picture and give the customer a much better experience. Here's a great virtual recruiter app that could be used for any kind of recruiting technologies. This concept is put together for, say, a travel nursing example, where we could take an organization that may only have online real live humans from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., but still want to support the travel nurse community that works from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. overnight through a virtual recruiter app that could walk them all the way through the process through a text or speech technology that would walk them through the filling out the application, searching for an opening, approving. You could then, the end nurse could approve the app and process the job order all overnight, leveraging this chat feature and chat functionality. It could auto fill out these things just based on the conversation. Hey, I'm interested in Boston. Okay, use this while we're continuing this conversation, search for those openings. I want to work in the cardiology department, stay in that, search for a new position, and then drive revenue from this example. So those are a few different examples of ways that you could leverage generative AI to not only enhance your customer experience, but also drive net new revenue sources, create a safer environment. So the use cases are plenty. But as I mentioned early on, the challenge oftentimes in an organization is that discovering these use cases and what is the art of the possible oftentimes becomes the blocker to how these get implemented inside of an organization. So what we've done is we've developed an AI discovery methodology that we're happy to share with you that you could leverage on your own. We can work with you on this if it's something that you want to use an external party for, but otherwise you can do it all yourself. And really, we've set this up into 5 different steps. You know, really inside of about an 8-week period, you could bring a proof of value product or implementation of a custom CoPilot, either internal or customer facing, to life and see if it drives the value that you are looking for. But really the key here is that you do these initial assessments and setting the goals. And so as you start to bring the cross-functional team together, the key here is to go out and identify and interview all of the key business units inside your organization, from sales to accounting to marketing to operations, all of these different fulfillment, etc. All of these different areas, to understand what are some areas that are opportunities for this. And so through these interview process and workshop processes, you'll come up with a list of 10 or 20 different areas. The key here is to define an ROI behind these. Choose areas that you have a super high ROI, that this could be a easily fundable and very beneficial opportunity inside your organization. Select this pilot program. Walk through with the team. Let's say you selected the marketing team as the first pilot, and this is a way to drive net new revenue through marketing initiatives. Build a pilot program so that you could then rapidly prove the value through the development that, in our experience, could be as short to get to proof of value as 4 weeks. Then the keys you want to do is work on the training and change management. So inside the organization, most organizations we talk to are not concerned about this threatening jobs, because everybody is overworked and has more than they could ever get done on their plate today. And so helping organizations understand how to leverage this, how to bring it into part of the workflow, and then managing the change is key to ensuring this rapid proof of value. And then launch, monitor, and evaluate. How did it perform? Is it doing what you wanted it to do? Is it providing the ROI that you were really focusing on to your organization? So we have a methodology that we're happy to share with you about how could you, in 8 weeks, work your way through this process. And last, just wanted to end on the concept of ROI. What we've found here is that focusing on metrics that matter inside your organization in these conversations, in any business unit, there's probably KPIs. They have key KPIs that probably align to your organization, align to driving value for your organization. Focus there. In marketing, it could be cost per lead. In HR, it could be staff turnover and retention. In sales, it could be revenue per employee. Across operations, it could be net promoter score. So find the metrics that matter in your organization, choose opportunities, leverage GenAI on these metrics that matter, and then measure them and see, did it do the right, did it give you the return on investment you're looking for? And then you can start moving down the list of the discovered opportunities and continue to implement these things. Whew, that was a lot of talking. So happy to answer any questions or want to work through any scenarios that any of you have. Look forward to exploring some of these opportunities with you. Hopefully this piqued some interest. It sparked an idea of, I wonder if we could do this, that, or the other. What questions could I answer? Mike and I answer.
So we did have one that came in during the presentation. I do see we have a couple more coming in, including someone just asked if this will be recorded. It is indeed recorded, and we'll share it out. The earlier question was around use cases specifically for nonprofits. They mentioned that many of what we see today out there kind of throughout the market is focused on for-profit organizations or customer facing. And I was actually looking into this a little bit while you guys were wrapping up the presentation, and a lot of similar uses apply to nonprofits as well. So it's more about thinking about how can I be more efficient within my organization? How can I surface insights and data that I normally would have to do manually? So a few examples in the nonprofit realm would be you can gather data faster using chatbots and survey aggregates that could supplement individual human outreach. So instead of having people going door to door or out tabling at events or things, you can do this all digitally. You can reduce time spent on grant writing. I'm involved with a few nonprofit boards. Grants take so much time. And so using GenAI to create and refine those responses, you can be slapping out 5 grants in the time it takes you to do 1. You can obtain specific information much more quickly for insights on things like your membership or your audience, or data specific to your organization, like, for example, maybe climate information. So reduce your time spent on research. And then, of course, you can provide more and more relevant content for your audience. So nonprofits still need to do marketing. They still need to be doing outreach. And so creating that content itself, GenAI is a great way to accomplish that.
Yeah, I think, Joe, the only thing I would just add to that is, think about any place that there is a constraint in an organization, right? So think about just coming up with a random example, Boys and Girls Clubs, right? Like there are, Boys and Girls Clubs of America, that the parent organization, they need to support their leaders that are throughout their organization with net new ways to engage the boys and girls inside of the organizations, sharing best practices, helping to build a new program. There are so many different ways that GenAI could help support a nonprofit. Similar to, as Joe mentioned, the CRM integration. We have nonprofit customers that look at their CRM just like a sales funnel in the sales pipeline. How do we continue to raise capital through our donor network? How do we know our donors better, et cetera?
So we've got one other question here in the chat. That APIs and plugins were mentioned several times. I know a lot of the plugins, for example, might be native within Azure. They would like to know if Lunavi helps build those tools or if we're using all existing integration.
Yeah, I can talk about that one. So, what's great is if you already have existing APIs, you can leverage those to become plugins. And it's really about defining the metadata around those APIs to basically give the uh, ChatGPT or the LLM the knowledge about what the intent of that API is. And so if you think about it as like a tool in a tool belt, it basically will give the LLM the tool that it needs to, and then it knows how to use it essentially. So if there aren't any APIs, then yeah, we would build those. And actually, the banking app, for example, there was 2 existing APIs, and we actually built one for that. But we still did that in about 4 weeks from when we built that one. But so yeah, so there's definitely it can be a combination of both. But the APIs are there, and the nice thing too is those APIs already have the security built into them, right? Your tokens and your security layer. So that allows we could just leverage that with this then also.
So one other thing, Mike, I would add to that is, using the real key to launching these applications, both internal and external, is testing, right? You want to test to ensure that the GenAI is delivering the right level of detail, that the prompts are working the way you want the prompts to work, that you're testing that, the negative outcomes or any content security and safety is built in. Mike, do you want to talk about any of those capabilities?
Yeah. And it's a great point because we actually spent less time developing and more time doing exactly that when we're working on these. And it's really about, in general, if you've ever used ChatGPT and you've asked it the same question, it returns a different answer each time, right? It's not deterministic. So really it's about how you continue to do prompt engineering and training of the prompts and training of the model to get it to be more deterministic so you can actually predict that it's the correct answer. And there's actually tools you can use to basically leverage AI to test AI because you want to actually ensure that your answer is correct. But if it's a different answer every time, you can't really create just an automated test or something like that. But you can actually go out and call AI again and say, hey, does this mean the right thing? And if it does, even if the wording changed, it can say, yes, this is correct and give you back a correct assertion there. So, but it's a big piece of this. It's really will become a big part of what you're doing is training the model, getting it to be the right thing. And then like Sean said, being sure it's, there's content filters with Azure OpenAI. So you can actually set your settings to make sure, things are secure, private, that not secure, sorry, but to make sure it's not doing things that are, outside of what you want it to do. And so you could set those within the tool, but then you also still want to test them to make sure, like somebody can't use it for, any kind of like things you're not trying to intend for it to do.
Yeah, one of the interesting scenarios that we saw in some of our deployments is when you just ask a random question. So as you train these custom co-pilots for your specific use case, Larry Latte or auto dealer, you can ask it a random question like, hey, should I get married? And the co-pilot is going to bring that random question back into alignment with what it's supposed to be talking about. It's not going to say, well, do you love her or something like that? It's going to say, well, that a car would be a great gift. So it'll bring things back into the purview of the point of the conversation, which is a pretty fascinating capability of these custom co-pilots.
Great. Well, it looks like questions are running dry here. And so I did mention in the chat, if anybody does think of anything later, you want to pick our brains or you have some ideas for an AI project, definitely don't hesitate to reach out. I have our email addresses there in the chat. Always happy to answer questions and certainly keep Lunavi in mind as you're pursuing this new frontier.
Great. Well, thanks, everyone. Hope this was helpful. Hope this gave you some great ideas on how you could leverage Azure OpenAI, how you could leverage some of the custom co-pilots. This will be a forever changing technology that's going to enter into your organization. love to work with you on ways, and even if it's just brainstorming ways to use this. It's a big passion of mine. It's a big passion of Mike's, and we look forward to seeing what ideas you all have. Have a great afternoon.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.